What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Gordon, and today we're talking about how to plan better day trips. Trips that are 1 day or less, or maybe you're just doing an overnight camp, not like a through hike or anything. I've picked up some tips and tricks over the years, and I'm gonna share some of those with you today so that it's safe and fun and that you get everything out of it that you hoped you would get out of it. My glasses are really dirty, hold on. So the first thing you have to do is pick a location. So when it comes to finding good trails to hike on and good locations to camp in, I like to turn to All Trails or Gaia or Onyx, Backcountry. All of these are applications that you can get for your phone, and they're really, really great. I've actually used All Trails quite a lot to research certain hiking trails because I know that there's people on there that leave their own reviews for the hiking trail, and you can learn a lot from reading through those. So if you're researching your trip from home, which you probably are, you want to be comfortable, right? So you want to get some good clothes on. I suggest Bare Bottom Clothing. They are the sponsor of this video, and they make some awesome clothing. But not only do they make really good clothing for everyday adventure, they actually have a lot of initiatives where they give back. Bangladesh, they are giving meals to people there and kids, and they're providing clothing, they're providing masks. They really have a heart for giving back to communities, and I really appreciate working with companies like that. So for me, it's a no-brainer. You get high quality clothing and you're supporting others and helping others in need. This hoodie is from Bare Bottom, and it is incredibly comfortable. It's got just the right amount of stretch where it needs to, and it's cut really well. I feel great wearing it. I'm wearing these Loft joggers right now, and these things are really great. They stretch so nicely and they fit awesome. They're really warm, so they're great for spring weather. Super comfortable. They make boxer briefs and shorts. They make these tech tees and long sleeve shirts that are really awesome. Kind of like a base layer type feel. They even make these stretch joggers, which are really cool. They look super nice and they're comfortable. So check out Bare Bottom Clothing. They've got some really cool stuff, and if you use this code, you get free shipping on your first order, and you're helping someone else. Onyx Backcountry is an awesome app to use when charting out your hiking trips because you can really see the elevation gain and loss. You can see potential water sources. You can see how the terrain changes with the topographical map. I mean, you've got so many amazing features in that app. It's totally worth it. If you hike a lot, then I highly suggest you get that app. All Trails is a great place to go online if you've got like a computer, just for researching places to go, because people can post their pictures from their trail. They can post trail notes. What I like to do is look at the trip reports and see the most recent ones, because I can really kind of get a feel for how the weather is where I'm going and what the trail conditions might be like. So once you have a location, the next thing to really consider is the activity. What are you going to do when you're there? Are you going to be camping? Are you doing photography? Are you doing kayaking? Are you doing some ham radio activity? It's really good to consider what you're going to be doing, because it's good to know how much gear you need to bring with you or how much gear to not to bring with you. That's sometimes the most important thing. A lot of times we can pack way too much, and then a day hike turns out to be really uncomfortable because you're hauling a bunch of stuff you're never going to use. Definitely pack your 10 essentials, whatever it is that you're going to be doing when you get to the place where you're going or along the way. And don't forget to look into parking. So a lot of times on a map, there'll be parking locations along a trail, but sometimes they are fee-based parking, so you actually need to have cash with you or make a payment somehow for the parking fee where you're going. So it's really good to try to figure that out in advance before you go. Also, if you're doing an out and back hike, you want to make sure that you are physically able to make that out and back hike. Otherwise, you could end up stranded and then need to somehow call for help. And hopefully you have cell service at that point. It's nice when you're hiking with multiple people because you can actually shuttle a car to the end of where you're going to be hiking, so you don't have to do an out and back hike. Another thing is permits. Do you need a permit to hike where you are going to be hiking or to be where you're going to be? And a lot of times that's just as simple as having a park pass for wherever you're going. Like here in Wisconsin, you buy an annual pass and you're good to enter all of the state parks for the year and do some hiking. Now, if you're going to be filming and you have a monetized YouTube channel or something like that, then you need to watch out for national parks now, because it is now not legal to film in a national park for commercial gain unless you have a filming permit, and that can take a lot of time. Make sure that you're filing these permits in advance and getting approved for them well before your trip. So just a heads up on that. And no matter where you go, you always should be looking at the weather. I start looking at the weather as far out as I possibly can when I'm planning a trip. I want to look at the average weather for that time of year if I'm really far away from the trip. And as I get closer within like the 10 days, 5 days from the trip, I will start to see what the weather is actually going to look like. It's always a good idea to keep checking the weather as you get closer and closer to your trip, because you don't want to get surprised with a condition that you aren't ready for. If your idea of an awesome trip is a sunny day and 70 degrees and it's going to be 40 and raining, then maybe you don't want to go on the trip that day. It depends on your skill level. It depends on the kind of experience that you're looking to have. And I always like to pack clothing for plus or minus 10 degrees for wherever I'm going to be on that day. So if the high is 60 degrees and the low is 40, then pack for 30 and 70. You want to make sure that you are comfortable and can shed layers and put layers back on as needed. A really important thing to do is to download an offline version of the map of the place where you're going. Don't assume that your GPS on your phone or your device will work where you're going, because you could run out of battery, the device could fail, or you could just not have reception at that given time. Whether that is through something like Onyx Backcountry, you zoom into an area and select it and then download that, and it is now on your device local, so that you don't need to have reception. And when you download an offline map onto a device of any kind, you should definitely put it into airplane mode and then test the map to make sure that you can still get it. Make sure that you did it right. I can't tell you how many times where I thought I had something downloaded and then I get out and I just don't have it. And I would have been able to catch that if I would have put it in airplane mode before I went out. You can also purchase maps for the area that you're in. Like last year, I purchased a day hike map. This map has really, really good detailed legends of all the different day hikes that are possible within Glacier National Park. And what I found out about this map, which was really, really helpful, is that when my plan A and my plan B fell through, I could come up with a plan C really quickly, because I could look on a map like this and see something that was similar and close and attainable with the given trail conditions and go for it. So if you don't have a resource like this with you and you don't have reception, then you're kind of like shot. You don't have any other plan for the day. So although it feels old school to have a paper map like this, I always suggest people get it, because it gives you more options, it gives you more information, and that can be helpful. Also, maps like this tend to be waterproof or water resistant, and they float, which is nice. So if you end up running into some weather, which we do when we're out hiking, then you don't have to worry about the map getting ruined. So I have this in a rainstorm, and it is absolutely fine. It's still good for the next time I go out there. Definitely plan a smaller, shorter, more achievable goal as a backup, just in case you can't do that main experience you were wanting to do. Likewise, if you blast through the experience and you have time left over, maybe you can do a smaller hike in the same day. So it's good to have 2 or 3 different trips planned within that location where you're going. When you get within a couple of days of going on your trip, you should definitely check the park websites of where you're going, because the rangers will post special notices about the park conditions there, saying that, certain roads may be closed due to weather or construction, and you will want to know that, because a detour could be very costly time-wise on your trip. It's also good when you print off your maps to mark water locations where you can possibly resupply on water. This would be lakes, streams, creeks, whatever you call them, or pumps where they supply water for guests. If you're going on a 10 or 15 mile hike, you definitely want to know where you can resupply on water. You don't want to carry more water than you need. If there's a stream or a creek that's of a good size and it's 5 miles down the trail, then you know that you can carry a little bit less water, because you can filter or sterilize your water when you get there. One thing about printing maps is that a lot of people will print a map. They'll go on usgs.gov, which is a great website to go on for trip planning. USGS provides topographical maps for free, and they're highly detailed. The thing is that some of them are pretty old, and you can't trust certain aspects of them. For instance, if you're going to do a cross-country trip using a topo map and a compass, like old school, you have to be careful, because the information at the bottom could be out of date. Like this map on the USGS site is from 1995. Given that the magnetic fields change by about 0.5% a year in our location, this could be 2 or 3 degrees off if you are actually plotting a course using a map and compass, which can really add up over several miles. So really be careful of magnetic declination numbers on maps, because they're probably out of date. Also, when you print a map, a lot of times you can't see enough detail for this to be useful. Like you can see major roads and stuff, which is good, but the actual topo lines, on a printed map, like from an inkjet or something at home, are probably not good enough to see. If you print something off, check it, make sure you can read it and that it's actually useful to you. So this map, for instance, is a map of Devil's Lake. It's the whole area. It's the whole UTM grid square, the whole Universal Transverse Mercator grid square of the Devil's Lake area. Now, I'm going to be hiking here tomorrow. Now, this is not provide enough detail for me. So what I did was I zoomed in on the map to this, which gave me a lot more detail. This is good as an emergency backup map to have with me, because if my devices were shut off and I got off trail somehow, I could look at this and quickly sort out which way to go and which way to follow a compass to get me back to a trail or a road. What I found too is that when I'm out in the backcountry, it's good to have a map of the whole region where I'm in because of the roads. Sometimes roads are shut down and GPS fails you because you can't get a signal, and you just need to look at a good old-fashioned paper map to see how you can reroute and get around that obstruction, landslides, avalanches, construction, downed trees. I have seen all of those things, and having a paper map allowed me to quickly sort out an alternate route, even though my phone wasn't working. Another important thing is to consider your fitness level. I am currently not very fit because I spent some time last year recovering from a surgery, and so I really need to be careful how far I go hiking. One thing is elevation and how that can really affect you if you are from a lower elevation going to a much higher elevation. For instance, I am at 700 and some feet above sea level, pretty low. And if I was to go to Denver, Colorado, and try to just go off and start hiking right away, I would have a hard time because I'd be very winded. Definitely consider your fitness level when you look at some of these hikes. If you live in the Midwest and you hike 7 miles, then if you go into the Rocky Mountains and you are way up in elevation, you're probably going to have a lot harder time. Look at the elevation gain and loss for the hike that you are attempting. Make sure you're not getting yourself in over your head. It's also important that if you have a device like the Garmin InReach Mini, that you have an active subscription for that service. I had suspended my service because I wasn't hiking over the winter and went out for a trip and didn't activate it. Tried to text home, couldn't. Just something to keep in mind, that if you have a device like that, make sure you have an active subscription. Probably the most important thing that you can do in planning your trip is to leave an itinerary behind. So that is where you're going, the trail that you're planning on going on, your B and C, your alternate plans if you're not going to be on that trail, how long you're going to be on that trail, when you think you'll be back, contact information for the park, like the park ranger's number, your vehicle license plate, your medical information, an emergency contact on there as well, because you should leave an itinerary with someone that cares about you at home, but you should also leave something like that in your vehicle in case you don't show up. People get lost and hurt all the time in the wilderness, all the time. It's such an important thing to remember that you are not immune to these things. A little bit of planning can go a long way to keeping you alive if you get in a situation like that. So make an itinerary for every trip you go on. So that's what I do every time I plan a trip. I hope you found that useful, or at least entertaining. We'll see you later.